Hi, my name is Yolanda, and today I'll be analyzing the movie The Lorax through a visual rhetoric perspective. To start off, I'm going to give you a short overview of the movie. Essentially, the film follows Ted, a boy living in Thiningsville, which is a fully artificial city, where people must buy clean air because the trees and the grass are even fake. And while curious about what happened to the trees, he seeks to find the author who reveals how his own corporate greed led to the destruction of the truffula forest. So with that being said, the film The Lorax, directed by American director Chris Renaud, basically like a simple animated story about protecting our environment, but by analyzing both the text and context, I argue that The Lorax uses visuals, symbolism, and emotional storytelling to show how consumerism and corporate greed can lead to environmental destruction, while also suggesting that change is possible through individual responsibility. And I will be using concepts from our lectures and readings from Selno, Rebecca, and Foss to support my thesis. First, I want to look at the text itself. According to Selno, visual rhetoric refers to how images play a powerful role in communicating deeper ideological meaning to audiences without words. In the context of the Lorax, the film is not random, but it's intentionally designed to influence how we think and feel about environmental destruction, consumerism, and our responsibility to the planet. And moreover, by applying Rebecca's concept of the language of analysis, we can better understand how the movie creates meaning. At the beginning of the film, when the Once-Layer is recalling how beautiful the truffula forest used to be to Ted, the film's use of senselessness is especially clear. Here we see that the forest used to be super bright, colorful, and full of life, and there's funky looking orange, yellow, and pink trees, mountains of grass, and adorable little animals including swami swans, humming fish, and singing barbaloons, which are all accompanied by cheerful background music. And these elements all work together to make the truffula forest feel very warm and welcoming. Not to mention the slow pace during this scene lets us take in the beauty of the forest, and as the movie progresses, the pace increases when the Once-Layer begins to produce more threads and expands his business. Here we see that the machines are cutting down large amounts of trees, his factory is expanding, and while he's polluting the air and the water, and this builds an overall sense of urgency and chaos. And we additionally see that this shift showed us how consumer demand led to the overproduction of the needs because, well, if there was no consumer demand, he wouldn't be producing them to begin with. So all this got to his head and his greed spiraled out of control. That being said, after the last truffula tree was cut down and the entire forest got destroyed, the pace slowed down again and let us fully take in the consequences of his actions. We saw that the landscape was now empty, lifeless, there was no greenery in sight, and then animals were now leaving as they had no place to call home. And again, once the once blue sky was now gray and dull. And here we see that the feeling is another important element at play. As audience members, we feel empathy and guilt and sadness for the animals as they are forced to migrate. And in contrast to earlier joyful music, it's now more melancholy, and the animals' gloomy reactions just make it all the more emotional. Through this, we see that the film shows audiences that environmental destruction and consumerism has real consequences for real living beings, which just overall makes us reflect on our consumer habits. Moreover, when it comes to symbolism, an important moment that I noticed was when Ted received the last truffle seed from the Once-Layer, along with the message that unless someone like you cares a whole lot, nothing is going to be done at an hour, 2 minutes and 56 seconds. And here, the seed represents hope and renewal for the Needville, and Ted symbolizes the power of individuals to create change, as he ultimately is the one who plants the seed in the center of town and inspires other townspeople to recognize the importance of trees and nature. And this connects to Foss' idea that how we perceive what we know, what we experience, and how we act are shaped by the symbols we encounter. Foss, page 3. So through these symbols, audiences are encouraged to see how our own action, our own overconsumption can harm our environment. And through the one-star's words, the film suggests that if people do not care or take action, nothing will be done. Nothing will change. And I think this ultimately motivates audiences to take responsibility for the environment, showing that even though damage has been done, it's still possible to reverse these actions if individuals choose to act. In the context, why this matters. So, to understand the meaning of the Lorax, we can apply Dr. Bell's lecture idea that meaning is shaped by the interaction between the author, the material, the audience, and the social context. So this means that it does not just exist in the film itself, but it is created through how audiences themselves interpret it based on their own experience and the cultural moment in which they view it. When looking at the immediate context, I found that the film was released in 2012 worldwide and was intended for a younger audience as it was rated PG due to its cartoon violence and mild language. But the main thing is that it hoped to teach newer and younger generations the importance of protecting nature in a simple manner. And it also hoped to reach parents and any viewers who resonated with the older Lorax books, some awareness and environmental concerns, in hopes of inspiring some environmental activism and just more awareness overall. So, when it comes to the broad context, when looking at Rebecca explains that the film provides a way of visualizing the past, gaining insight into the present, and speculating about the future. Page 205. So, the Lorax reflects 2000s and early 2010s growing environmental awareness and concerns about climate change, pollution, and corporate responsibility. At the time the film was being made, from 2009 to 2012, people were becoming more aware of how human actions, especially mass production, overconsumption, were damaging the environment. And I found that the original Dr. Seuss book that was released in 1971 directly addressed environmental issues of the time, which focused on deforestation in the United States, specifically the Pacific Northwest, where logging companies were cutting down trees at a very alarming rate. So that's why the Lorax decided to, make this book. And the companies even decided to make their own book, and lots of schools even banned the book, which again just shows that the conflict between environmental protection and profit has just been an ongoing issue for decades. And lastly, when looking at the real world events, I noticed that the Deepwater Horizon spill, which is considered to be the worst oil spill in U.S. history, occurred in 2010, which was a devastating event because millions of barrels of oil spilled into the ocean, killing wildlife, destroying ecosystem, damaging local economies that depend on fishing and tourism. So I believe that disasters like this are what made companies' environmental damage feel more real and urgent. And I definitely believe that this encouraged the filmmakers to push just the overall film's message even more to audiences. And in the context of today, obviously we live in a world where people are aware of environmental issues, but yet nothing is being done. Problems of climate change, pollution, and overconsumption are still ongoing. So while many people advocate for sustainability and change, large corporations still prioritize profit, and they still benefit from consumers' habits because consumers are just like, oh yeah, me just not buying something will make a change, when it kind of will. So today, the movie's message today is still relevant. In conclusion, that being said, I would argue that the director's message, Chris Renaud, was very effective in presenting his argument, because rather than telling the audience about how consumerism is harmful, the film used contrasting visuals, lots of symbolism, and touched on the viewer's feelings to let us see the consequences for ourselves. And it made it all the more powerful because instead of us just directly, seeing it, we got to interpret it for ourselves. And this argument was also important for our culture because as our society continues to prioritize convenience, consumption, and profit, and environmental harm, for example with Amazon, this movie helps us understand that these choices are deeply harmful and come with lots of consequences. So at the end of the day, by analyzing both the context and the text of the film, we can see that the Lorax is not just, again, a children's story, but a powerful rhetorical argument about how consumerism and corporate greed contribute to environmental destruction. And at the same time, it kind of gives us hope about how change is possible through individual action. So, if you listen to my entire presentation, you will have learned that this film is not just about saving trees, but about understanding how we have a role in shaping the world around us as well, and that change begins just through one person. Thank you.